Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Feeding People podcast. I'm Amy Dolan, your host, and I'm so thrilled for today's conversation with my guest because we have already been chatting grocery stores for like 30 minutes. And I'm telling you, if you like a grocery store, you are about to have the time of your life with us today. Okay, we're gonna give you a great time and listen, the best time you've ever had listening and talking about grocery stores. So my guest today is the fabulous Liz Abunaw. She is the founder and owner of 40 Acres Fresh Market. And listen, I don't know if you know about 40 Acres Fresh Market. Of course I do, because I'm her biggest fan. This fresh market is Chicago's first Black female-owned grocery store, and it is everything. And I'm so thrilled to talk to Liz today. Welcome, Liz.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, listen, we have been nerding out on grocery shopping for like so long, and I love it. So we were just talking about how much what a thrill grocery shopping is. So we were saying we don't totally understand people that don't, like have their adrenaline raised or go to the grocery store to feel good. What is it for you? What is it about grocery shopping that is just so magical and puts you in a good mood?
Okay, so I think one, you have to have a store that sets a good mood, like that sets that it's like you're walking into another world. And so the lighting is very important. It has to be bright. Typically, I like a store that when I walk in, you deposit me into a robust produce department. You've got to start me in produce because it's all the colors, it's the smells, it's the freshness. It's what we call in the industry theater. And you can create theater on nothing but the product. Theater. But the product alone. And produce is the only department that lets you do that. Like the mountains of freshness, mountains of apples and oranges and grapes and peaches and tomatoes, and then the green tomatoes next to the red tomatoes. The color palettes.
Oh my gosh.
And then all of a sudden when the sprinklers come on and you can just hear the misting over the greens, like this. And then the in-store radio is really important. The store has good in-store radio. It's like a party in there. And then there's people. And it just, you put it all together and it's a good ass time.
It's a good
around
ass
food.
time.
And I love to eat.
And let's not forget the whole reason we're there to begin with is to get some ingredients to feed ourselves or to host some people. I mean, it's just like the beginning of creating magic.
And the thing is that if you are in a good grocery store, what should happen is that even if you come in with a list, that store will tell you what you need. It should inspire your creativity. It should inspire your sense of adventure and exploration. And good grocery does that. I don't know how many times I've been in a store and been there for one thing and then saw something, whether it was on sale or I just didn't expect them to have it. And I'm thinking of the meals I can make. I'm thinking of what could I do with this? Now, the thing is, you have to be careful. Because what could happen is that you can tire yourself out so much at the grocery store because it's that much fun that by the time you get home, you don't feel like actually making anything that you bought. And then you just wind up ordering takeout.
100% of the time, that's what happens to me. And I've never thought about it. I've never thought about it in that way. Like usually it's like a very like shameful response I have where I'm just like, oh my gosh, I just spent this money. I have this great plan for the week. I have all this food. I'm ordering out. But it doesn't need to be shameful. It can be like, I just exerted all of this very great and this very like positive, happy energy and also like very responsible energy and taking care of myself and my family. And I'm exhausted. So
it's exhausting.
We'll get to those ingredients tomorrow.
I can easily pack in anywhere from 500 to 1,000 steps in a big grocery store.
Wow.
Like Pete's. Like a Pete's is really big. Their stores are like 40,000, 60,000 square feet. Those things are huge. Just a lap around the perimeter and then up and down several aisles. And like you've gotten your steps in just by being in there. So it's also a great workout too.
Okay, Liz, listen, I love you so much. And we're about to talk about all the good stuff now because this is just, we're having such a good time. So let's back up and start at the beginning. Tell me about food for you growing up and how you got to this incredible moment in time in which you're about to open a grocery store in Chicago's Austin neighborhood.
I don't think I thought about food that much growing up. It was abundant. It was there. It was mom or dad is home. My dad did the bulk of the grocery shopping. And then my mom would get mad at my dad because he would buy stuff that we already had. I'm just like, why are you buying more of this? We already had this. Because my dad would never take the list. He would just buy a bunch of stuff. And then it was like, Chuck, Liz, come on out to the garage and help your dad bring in all the groceries. My dad is from West Africa. He would cook a lot of, meals from home, some that we liked, most that we didn't. So when dad was cooking and the house would smell funny, my mom would put us in the car and we'd go to Burger King so that we didn't have to eat that. My first jobs were around food. So I worked at McDonald's. Well, that was like my first job when I was 16. I got fired from McDonald's. Oh. Yeah, a customer complained about me, said I was rude. And I wasn't. I was just joking around, but sometimes my sarcasm doesn't translate. So it is what it is.
Yeah, the customer is not always right, always.
Yeah. So still remember that. And then I across like the street was a grocery store, a chain in upstate New York called Price Chopper at the time. It's now called Market Bistro, but it's still Price Chopper, owned by the Golub family. And so I worked there. That was like my after school job. That was when you started getting prepared food in grocery stores. This was like the mid to late 90s when stores were starting that, if people are here, maybe we should also sell them some prepared food. Yeah. So they had a section of really good, there's pizza and fries and all types of stuff. So I'd do that for my lunch breaks. I didn't have any feelings on food. It just was not something I thought about very often. And it was just there. Food was there and you ate it. And I didn't think about food security. I didn't think about where my food was coming from. I was just like, food. And then unintentionally, not because I was trying to go down some path, after college, I worked for General Mills and I worked in sales. And if you work in sales in CPG, your customer is grocery retail. So I've been around food, I guess, for as long as I can remember. But it was never with any intention to do what I'm doing now, because when I moved to Chicago, I was very adamant that I was getting out of food. I was getting out of anything that had to do with grocery. I had no interest in it. I came here to go to grad school so that I could kind of hit a pause and reset on my career and pivot. That way I wouldn't only be looked at based on my resume of, oh, look, she spent 10 years at General Mills. Obviously, the next logical job for her should be at, Land O'Lakes or PepsiCo or another food company. And I just didn't want that for my life at all. It's like, no.
Yeah.
So, and now I'm opening a grocery store. So what did I know?
I feel like for me, in my life, I feel like the calling on my life, I describe as a really bad boyfriend I could never totally shake. I could just never totally get rid of him as hard as I try. I don't know if you feel that way, but it's I liken it to the mafia. Every time I think I'm out, it just pulls me back in. Yeah. There were many times when 40 Acres should have effectively ended. This was a nice little project that you worked on. This was cute. Yeah. Okay, go back to corporate and let somebody pay you for all of this education and work experience that you've had over the years. Don't continue to do this. And then something will happen where, oh, fuck. I guess I am continuing with this. Even if I don't want to. Yeah. Can't leave. You can't leave.
Yeah, it is like a bad boyfriend who just promises to do better every,
Right.
but he's so fine. Like he has to be like, it's that really attractive. He's that really attractive boyfriend who's beautiful. You're like, I'm never going to get anybody this good looking again. And I know that this emotional roller coaster is terrible for me, but when it's good, it's so good, and it will never ever be this good with anyone else. So yes, my career is like a very toxic relationship with the guy you can't get rid of. Yeah.
You just took my metaphor like a whole another level, and I love it.
No, I get it. I've been there.
I love it, but I
one.
like the mafia too. I'm really going to think about that because and it's like, plenty similar to you, like plenty of times I have just said like, that's enough. I'm out of here. Like that was a lovely, 20 years, but now this is not who I am. And there are other parts of me and all that. And it's just like, for me, I've had to like reckon, and also this is who you are. And so like, how am I going to like each day make peace with what I love about this calling on my life and what I don't love? Because a calling can't just be like all positive and wonderful. And like, I think that's sometimes what people think about it is that, like I have to feel great and like 100% certain and confident and like, yay, this is who I am. And that's not who it is. Like your calling also is a lot of hard work and a lot of pain and a lot of heartbreak and toxicity. And it's just like, for me, how am I going to make peace every single day with what I'm supposed to do here and the good and the bad of that? Let's talk about 40 Acres Fresh Market for a minute. So y'all started as a pop-up, right?
Yeah.
You were doing pop-ups and farmers markets and grocery delivery. And now you are getting ready to open your retail store. I mean, I just tell me about the vision of 40 Acres and the need for it. And
the vision has always been the same. It has always been about a brick and mortar store. As confident as I am in my abilities, I knew going in that I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. That if I wanted a grocery store, I didn't know what I was doing. So I should start simple and start small and start very nimble, flexible, low overhead. So for me, that was pop-ups. And so I think pop-ups, while not necessarily this financial path to scaling, were a really great way to learn the business. It is a great way to learn everything from supply chain on perishables, especially fresh produce is one of the hardest departments to run. So like your inventory is a ticking time bomb. So learning that off the bat, learning that supply chain, suppliers, inventory management, building a staff from scratch instead of like having a store and then filling it with like dozens of people. And that's my first time ever doing it. I think it was wise for me to start the way I did because I've learned so much in doing that. But I think that I often have to remind people that the store wasn't the next idea. It was always the idea. It was just, I didn't want to start there. I always felt that was more so the destination. It wasn't the beginning of the journey. I had a lot to learn. I still have a lot to learn. The pop-up started in 2018. Delivery service started pretty soon following that, more so because I just had to find a way to move more inventory. It was the pandemic, though, that made the delivery service pop off. Like nothing we had seen before. And that's where all of our growth happened. And so it made it even easier to scale to the brick and mortar store because it became very obvious that we needed something bigger. We needed something more permanent. And it actually could complement the delivery service well at the app store.
That makes so much sense. Right. As you've been transitioning to the brick and mortar and opening the retail store, which has always been the dream, like, what does that feel like? What is that like right now as you get closer and closer to this dream you've had in your body for so long?
It feels scary. Most days I'm terrified. Because several things. One, we're still figuring out the capital stack for the operations. It wasn't difficult to get the capital to build the store. Capital on infrastructure is more readily available than capital to do operations, like to pay labor, to pay rent, to pay these things that you kind of have to be doing before you even open your doors. And then also where, when you do first open your doors, understanding that you're not likely going to be profitable right off the bat. So then how do you fill that gap? And how do you find the capital to fill that gap? That's been an ongoing journey. And we've done very well in the past on getting capital, but it was the timing. I think also, if you had asked me in 2018 where we would be today, I would have told you that the store would have been open for several years at this point. I thought it was much easier to get a store open than it has proven to be. Even in 2020, when we bought the site for the store, I was like, okay, it'll be open in a year. We didn't even break ground on construction until close to 3 years later. So it's like, okay, how do you scale what you're currently doing? How do you put more structure into what you're currently doing? Because as a startup, oftentimes you're just doing. And you're not recording things in terms of like, you're not recording processes. You're not putting in procedures. You're not putting in standard operating procedures and processes, policies for your employees to follow. In order for it to be a business that exists in and of itself without me, this stuff can't live up here. It has to live in some type of documentation. It took me a long time to really understand that and get there. We're still getting there. And those things are investments of time and money to get somebody to create them, because I only have capacity to do so much.
That must be the hardest part, is just kind of like having a plan and a vision, but also having to like hold everything very loosely and saying like,
it takes, there's
so
some
much
stuff that
must be out of your control.
There's so much. So there's stuff that's in my control, right? I can control what I can control. The 3-year process from securing the site to the start of construction, some of that was in my control. And then, some things we can't control is like, city permitting.
Right.
You can't control that. So that's stuff that's out of your control. And you put all that together and all of a sudden, what you thought was a 1-year timeline becomes closer to a 4-year timeline.
Liz, so given the challenges and given all of that, why open a grocery store?
I ask myself that every day.
Why? Why?
I have often yelled at my best friends, the people closest to me, for letting me do this. I tell them all the time, you should have stopped me.
This is your fault.
This is your fault. You knew. You know me. Why would you let me do this? Why? I blame all of them. And you encourage this bullshit.
I get that.
And you're bad friends. They're bad friends.
They sound terrible.
Really? It's like, you should have stopped me. So there's that. I didn't have people who looked out for me and told me no, which sucks. But I think there's a couple things. One, I have grown to love the West Side of Chicago. I love the Austin neighborhood. I'm not from here, but I feel like Austin has made me part of that community. And so it's just very nice to feel like you have a home. I think it's a vibrant community of amazing people who I don't see as needing my help, but who are underserved and who could be very excellent, loyal customers, consumers, and deserve to be treated and courted as such.
Yes.
I think that there's a lot of, it's not even thinly veiled. There's just a lot of racist, like just out and out anti-Blackness and racism in the business of grocery in terms of how we talk about what neighborhoods deserve. Good food, what neighborhoods can support retail. Just a lot of that narrative of like, well, if there's anything good to be found there, like the big guys would already be there, as though old white men are infallible and all of their decisions are right, and they've thought of everything. So what more could you possibly think of? So part of that is just like stubbornness, and I hate being wrong, and I think I'm just as smart as anybody else. And just because you couldn't figure it out doesn't mean that I can't.
Yes.
I don't believe the narrative that surrounds a lot of our communities. And so I'm always a fan of a good fuck you.
Okay. I love this.
So that's why.
That's why. I love this. Oh my gosh. I've just said so much goodness and all of that. I love what you said about not believing the narrative. If a community was deserving of something beautiful, like a wonderful grocery store with grocery theater, then it would be there. The people don't want, I mean, I feel like the narrative often is like the people don't want it. And it's just like, no,
which I think is crazy, because if you grocery shop in certain neighborhoods, I'm sorry, you know that like a lot of those people in that store don't live in that neighborhood. So obviously they want it. Like they are traveling to go get it. If you live, like, let's take, actually, fuck it, you could take the South Loop.
Yes.
If you go into stores in the South Loop ain't that Black and Hispanic. It's probably one of the more diverse neighborhoods in Chicago. Yes. But like not all that diverse. And we're there. And you're coming from South. You're coming from Bronzeville, where Bronzeville's gotten better, but it's still not like doesn't have like all the stuff the South League has. So you see that. If you live in Oak Park, you see it all the time, because they're coming from Maywood. Predominantly Black, working class suburb. I remember going shopping at a grocery store in Oak Park, and I'm like, Oak Park is not this Black. It's just, it's not. It's not at all. If you look at the Pete's on Western and Madison, if you walk into that Pete's, it's Garfield Park in there. So don't tell me that the neighborhoods with people who look like me and we don't have grocery stores, we don't want nice things, because we're shopping at the stores with all the nice things.
And making more of an effort even to get to those stores because they're not in the neighborhoods.
They're not as close. And we're enriching already wealthy neighborhoods by supporting the businesses that exist there, while being told that we can't support businesses in our own neighborhood. While being told that we don't have the income and such to sustain businesses in our own neighborhood. And I'm just like, the math don't math there. So I was like, bet, what if we took all of these dollars from Austin away from Oak Park? What would Oak Park look like?
That is such a great question. Yes.
And I'm not even saying take it all away. I'm just saying that, like, you can't tell me that we spend this much money there, but we can't sustain a business in our own community. Like, logic that out for me.
And I wonder even if some of that shift has happened as you've been doing your pop-ups, farmers markets, grocery delivery. And then once you have your brick and mortar open, like, no doubt some of that will shift. And hopefully a lot of it will shift.
Listen, from a small business perspective, we're doing, great. I wouldn't say great, but like the growth it's palpable and it's noticeable for us. But honestly, whatever business we do, like, it's a rounding error for like, they're not the stores and like the groceries. Like, I'm not getting high off my own supply enough to actually believe that any of them even know who 40 Acres is, what 40 Acres is doing, and if they have any level of concern about us. So like, we're not siphoning any of their business off. But real talk, I'm going to say this. I don't think we have to take from them.
Yes.
I think that another player actually expands the pie for everybody.
Yes, always.
So
always.
We're opening a 9,473-foot grocery store. There is no way that we are playing in the same lane as major grocery retailers. We're just not. We don't have the square footage. We don't have the capacity. So we have to figure out a lane. I always say that with our store, by all means, please do us both a favor and do your major grocery shop at the Pete's, the Costco's, the Walmart. Do it. Have fun. Knock yourself the fuck out. Right? If you're anything like me, after that big trip, give it like 4 to 7 days. And you're going to either run out of something or realize you forgot something. And you're not going to want to go back to that big ass store to pick up 1 or 2 things. Now there's a store less than a mile from your house in walking distance.
I love that.
You know something? If you need that 4-pack of toilet paper, we got it. You need some fresh food because you need to make dinner tonight. We got your meat. We got your produce. What I look at 40 acres as, we are not the pantry load. We're not even going to have like large shopping carts. It's the smaller 2-tier carts and handheld carts and handheld baskets.
We all want those smaller carts anyway.
I love the smaller carts.
I love the small carts so
I am
much.
a small cart girl. I look at 40 Acres Fresh Market, the brick and mortar store, as a 2-bag shop. I want you walking out of there with 2 bags full. You go home, you're good, and then you're back in my store 3 or 4 days later. I want the fill-in trip. That's the store we are.
I love that.
That's why I don't need all that square footage. I can have every single category.
Yeah.
I don't need 12 doors of pizza. For what?
Yeah.
I'm good on 5 to 7 SKUs of frozen pizza. Like, we've covered it.
I love that. That's such a beautiful vision. And I want to come by right now and use that little tiny shopping cart and fill up my 2 bags.
You'd be in the middle of a construction site right now, but have at it.
It kind of sounds fun to push a little cart around a construction site, actually.
There's no coolers. There's no interiors. Like, there's no windows.
We'll just do some races or something. I love it.
Yeah.
I could talk to you all day about this, but we got to get to dinner.
Okay.
I want to ask you, in the midst of feeding so many others and thinking about food for so many other people, how do you feed yourself?
Often very poorly. It was a miracle today that I was not in somebody's drive-through because I forgot to eat this morning. And but thankfully I had food when I got home that I'd already made the night before. I try to be mindful about my eating because as I get older, I know how much food impacts our health. I see how it impacts not just our physical health, but our mental health. Like, food can take you places mentally, physically, emotionally that sometimes you don't want to go.
Yes.
So just being mindful about that. But also food, I've also recognized that food is labor. It can be a labor of love, but it's still labor. So I go through fits and starts. There's times where I love creating in the kitchen. I love the feeling of accomplishment of making a delicious meal for myself. I then quickly also, it's hard to cook for one person because it's just me here. And also just as you become more mindful of the economics of food, how it's not just about feeding yourself, but like your purchase of food feeds somebody else's family. And how extractive our food system is. And then wanting to make conscious decisions to rebel against that extraction. So a friend of mine and I had always joked about the demon that is DoorDash and how it's so easy and so convenient. But I'm like, I'm ordering more food than I normally would just to justify paying this delivery fee. And I don't need all this food. And then also just the systems and how much money they put into those systems that, once again, are not profitable. They still haven't figured out how to break a profit on many of these systems. And then what that does to the food industry and a race to the bottom. And just all of it's real kind of icky when you...
It's real icky. Yeah.
It's really icky when you get into it. And so then trying to figure out what's your part within it. And it's hard because I'm a consumer, but I'm also a business owner. And I'm like, how much am I contributing to all of it? And that all goes into just getting food into your body. And so
Yes.
wanting to do it in a way that's more mindful, but then also recognizing my limitations as a person,
Mhm.
in terms of like how much energy can I put towards this at any given time.
Yes. I appreciate that really honest response. Like sometimes people in the food industry, you know, we feel like we have to describe food in a very romantic way. And it's not that. Food is complicated for everyone and on various levels for everyone, means different things. So I appreciate that honest response so much.
Absolutely.
I've had the best time with you today, Liz. This has been so
fun.
much fun. Listen, I got to meet you in a grocery store sometime. And I want to like, I don't know, we're going to like dance around the store or something. You're going to tell me everything happening.
I am the only person who dances in grocery stores. Whenever
Really?
I'm at the store, I'm jamming out, and then I look around and like everybody else is just shopping. I'm like, do you not hear what they're playing? Do you not hear like this is the cut? Like this is the
This is Disneyland, people. Come on.
yes. It's like they're not even noticing the joy that's happening around them,
Right.
and I feel sorry for them, to be honest.
I know. Well, maybe this is your next business, is reclaiming the joy of grocery shopping with Liz.
It has to be.
And you'll take them dancing or something in the store.
Stores like the club. It's Trader Joe's during the pandemic. There was one in it's on the border of Lincoln Park and Lakeview.
Uh-huh.
They had a line because they weren't letting too many people
Yeah.
in it, and it looked like a nightclub. People with their
Oh, yeah.
with their
I love it.
reusable grocery bags, standing in line, waiting to get the Trader Joe's. I'm like,
Waiting.
is this
I
the
love
club?
it.
No, is this what we're doing? Okay, that's fine. That's cool.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Liz. This was
No
amazing.
problem. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the invite.